Good evening to you all. Very warm welcome to ETV News. I'm Grum Tariku. Africa has been relentlessly struggling to have its voice represented in multilateral institutions. This preserves in the face of mounting external pressure that has not fallen on deaf ears. During a brief but eventful stay in Ethiopia this week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken reiterated that U.S. is keen to see that Africa's quest for a fair representation in multilateral institutions such as the UN Security Council and the G7 are swiftly addressed. Blinken said Ethiopia will be reinstated to the AGOA after the full implementation of the peace deal. Koshmal So takes up from here.
The United States and Ethiopia have enjoyed more than a century of diplomatic relations dating back to 1903. The second most populous country on the continent, Ethiopia is a key player in regional politics and a long-standing U.S. ally. However, the relationship between Ethiopia and the United States was strained due to the conflict in northern Ethiopia. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken paid one-day visit in Ethiopia. During his visit, he met top Ethiopian officials, democratic institutions and civil society organizations, as well as a chairperson. In an exclusive interview with Fana Broadcasting Corporate, Blinken said the peace agreement and its implementation played a crucial role in saving and changing the lives of war-affected people.
What we've seen with the agreement and its implementation so far is very significant and very important progress, both in saving lives and in changing lives. The fact is, the guns are silent. Humanitarian assistance is moving into Tigray. Services are being restored. The TPLF is putting down its weapons, and external forces are departing. At the same time, what I heard from the government today was not only a commitment to seeing that process through, but also other critical parts of the agreement, to include standing up a credible, inclusive, transitional justice process to make sure that there's reconciliation as well as accountability for the tremendous damage that was done.
The Secretary of State confirmed that Ethiopia will be reinstated in AGOA after the full implementation of the peace deal.
As the agreement is fully implemented and as all the parties sustain the work that they need to do to include, as I mentioned, transitional justice, that will allow us to strengthen and increase our own partnership, including on economic development. When it comes to AGOA, under the law, we suspended Ethiopia more than a year ago because of the human rights violations in Tigray. And there's a clear pathway back to AGOA, and the work that is being done to implement the agreement very much is moving Ethiopia along that pathway.
Blinken also welcomed the transitional justice system put in place by the Ethiopian government. He reaffirmed the U.S. support towards the objective of African voices in multilateral global organizations.
Over the course of the next couple of decades, 1 out of 4 people on Earth will be African. When we look at the fact that this is one of the youngest populations overall in the world, the future is being built here. And our desire is to make sure that we're helping to build it with Africa. But that also means that Africa's voice needs to be heard in these major international organizations, to include the United Nations Security Council, to include groups like the G20. President Biden strongly supports that. He's made that clear both at the Africa Leaders Summit and on other occasions. And we'll be working toward both of those objectives over the next months.
The Secretary of State reaffirmed the United States maintained a long-standing partnership with Ethiopia and its people, recalling the $3 billion USD humanitarian assistance in 2020 and the new additional $331 million US humanitarian assistance.
Despite toying with the idea of an arm-twisting tactic for so long, the U.S. has made the right decision, taking bold steps to reinvigorate its ties with Ethiopia and the rest of Africa. The initiative has come to a fruition following the cessation of hostilities deal between warring parties in Pretoria, South Africa, early November. And the renewed status quo, the U.S. has gone to such a formidable lengths to send its foreign minister for a visit to Ethiopia. The recent visit by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is a leap forward in the Ethio-U.S. relations. Daniel Kassaun has more on this.
In last December, the United States of America has hosted African heads of state and governments in Washington, D.C. for the first summit by the two continents. The summit was intended to charter a new phase of their relations in a better manner. That summit has shown us face-to-face discussions between the Ethiopian delegation with the American counterparts. That was a remarkable moment between the two sides after a short relationship.
Back before 2 months, I think, in Washington, there was a U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit.
Yes.
And it is a national strategic document of Biden that was released in 2022. America, or the U.S. Department, clearly stated that they want to innovate the relation with Africa.
Now, the recent visit by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is a leap forward in the Ethio-U.S. relationship.
America wants us to exploit the economic opportunities of the African markets. This has another implication I will just raise later on. So it is an extension. Today's Secretary Blinken's visit to Ethiopia is an extension of that. At the same time, there are other higher state officials visiting other African countries.
It's time and again that senior government officials of the United States publicly declaring their geopolitical interest in the Horn of Africa, which they say cannot be achieved without actively working with Ethiopia.
If Ethiopia is not stable in the region, the whole region will be in chaos, the Horn Africa region. You know the case of Sudan, we know what is happening in Eritrea, Nairobi, the domestic problems, all. So it is really a very fragile but geopolitically important region. That is why they are very much concerned about to contain the Ethiopian domestic problem, especially the war.
Having visited Ethiopia, Antony Blinken has headed to Niger, which is his last stopover in his African tour. Vice President Kamala Harris is also expected to visit Africa towards the end of this month.
Mayor of Djibouti City, Said D. Mohammed, and his delegation arrived in Dredwa City for a 3-day working visit as both sister cities seek to further solidify relations. The Djiboutian mayor received a warm reception from Mayor Kader Johar upon his arrival at the Dredwa airport. The Djiboutian delegation, which comprises of business and investment community, together with high officials of the Ethiopian city, has visited Dredwa Free Trade Zone and Dredwa Industrial Zone. Approached by Ethiopian news agency, South Sudanese ambassador to Ethiopia, James P. Morgan, reiterated that Ethiopia has been instrumental in the signing of the South Sudanese peace agreement and its implementation. Ambassador Morgan went on to say that South Sudan is committed to a comprehensive and durable peace in the region. Take a look.
Ethiopia has been instrumental in South Sudan peace agreement implementation, and for its success, South Sudanese ambassador James Peter Morgan said. In an exclusive interview with Ethiopian news agency, South Sudan ambassador James said the recent Prime Minister Abiy's visit to South Sudan was very much important.
This kind of visits are going to continue because we want to work together as a region and to strengthen our bilateral relations. And this kind of visits are more encouraged. We need them to continue, not only last Monday, but it has to continue because it is a sign of working together. I think it was one of the best way how our region can work together in general, and the two sister countries, South Sudan and Ethiopia, will continue to do that. And that was very important.
Ambassador James went on saying that South Sudan is also grateful to PM Abiy as a neighboring country. The peace in South Sudan is the peace for the whole region. The ambassador stated that the premier was warmly welcomed by President Salva Kiir Mayardit and held discussion with President and First Vice President Riek Machar. Ambassador James noted that it was good assurance for him at the neighboring country, and also as Ethiopia had been instrumental in South Sudan peace agreement, peace implementation, and for its success. Moreover, the ambassador recalled that we are in the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement, which was signed in 2018.
He was received by His Excellency the President of the Republic, where also the First Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar, was also in the meetings that took place within those few hours. So it was a good assurance for him as a neighboring country, and also as Ethiopia had been instrument in this peace agreement and the peace implementation and its success.
The implementation of the peace agreement is a process, Ambassador James said, adding in every stage people have to evaluate how it has come up to this level and what is required to take it forward, and encourage parties to make sure that the country needs to put in the path of peace. The ambassador elaborated that the peace agreement is going on very well. On the other hand, he indicated that the two countries are working to strengthen their relationship in multifaceted spheres.
In a related development, Ethiopia's Ministry of Innovation and Technology and the Sudanese Ministry of Telecommunication and Digital Transformation have signed a memorandum of understanding on Thursday to cooperate on telecommunication and digital transformation sectors. Innovation and Technology Minister Belet Amolla and Sudanese Minister of Telecommunication and Digital Transformation Adel Hassan Mohammed Hussein signed the MOU in Addis Ababa. The implementation of the agreement is expected to improve people-to-people relations, experience sharing, and cooperation on security issues between the two countries. Innovation and Technology Minister Belet Amolla said on the occasion that his ministry is committed to implement the MOU aimed at cooperating on telecommunication and digital transformation. Sudanese Minister of Telecommunication and Digital Transformation, Adel Hussein Mohammed Hussein, expressed readiness to start a new era of collaboration with Ethiopia. The signing of the MOU by the Sudanese and Ethiopian ministries for cooperation in ICT and digital transformation is to tap into the unlimited opportunities in the field of telecom and digital transformation.
Welcome to the land of origins. Commercial Bank of Ethiopia is pleased to serve all your traveler banking needs. If you have money from any of these 16 countries, you can convert it to local currency by visiting our nearest branch. Alternatively, our secure Forex ATMs accept cash exchange, or if you prefer using your cards, we've partnered with Visa, MasterCard, and UnionPay so that you can withdraw cash from our local ATMs or make cashless transactions at thousands of local POS partners securely and with confidence. We are linked with more than 700 global banks through our direct SWIFT address, CBE Teta. We also work with 16 international money transfer agents, out of which Tune and World Remit enable you to make direct deposits into our savings and current accounts or our popular CBE Burr mobile wallet. Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, the bank you can always rely on.
Welcome back, and you are watching ETV News. Borno Zone Emergency Coordination Task Force announced that humanitarian aid sent to drought-affected citizens in Borno Zone is being properly accessed. The task force, composed of 4 ministries and Oromia regional offices, mainly monitors that humanitarian aid is sent to the zone is fairly accessible to the community. The task force visited 13 districts and 2 city administrations in Borana zone and conducted a field observation regarding access to humanitarian aid. The task force has confirmed that humanitarian aid materials and nutritious food sent to the zone are properly accessible to the community. Dems Shume, head of the Emergency Coordination Center in the zone, said that the task force prepared a detailed checklist and conducted field observation on the access to humanitarian aid by traveling to different areas of the zone. He mentioned that he was able to ensure that humanitarian aid is accessible in all areas of the zone. Ambassador Fuad Abadillah Al-Hamadini underscored that Saudi Arabia is keen to maintaining strong trade and investment ties with Ethiopia. The ambassador told Ethiopian news agency that the economic relations between Ethiopia and Saudi Arabia are commendable. However, Ambassador Al-Hamadini noted that this does not reflect the existing potential of relations and their importance in the region, stressing the need to further bolster ties for the benefit of the people of the two countries. Ambassador Al-Hamadini stressed that there are ongoing consultations between the two countries to encourage business persons in general and Saudi business people in particular to enter the Ethiopian market and invest as well. Although African countries have made commendable progress in implementing the regional integration agenda and promoting intra-regional trade, more steps are needed to accelerate the African Continental Free Trade Agreement AfCFTA and the re-ratification of the Protocol on the Free Movement of Persons, Right of Residence and Right of Establishment, said Stephen Karingi, the Director for Regional Integration and Trade Division at UNECA. According to Karingi, the support member states in their formulation and implementation of economic policy. The ECA has developed a prototype macroeconomic model. It has further provided support and training in 15 countries. On the fiscal side, the ECA supported taxation policy reform and revenue collection in Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and Zambia. Speaking on the infrastructure and energy sectors, he noted that the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war have, however, worsened public deficits and debt burden, which have reduced infrastructural investment in Africa.
Welcome to the land of origins. Commercial Bank of Ethiopia is pleased to serve all your traveler banking needs. If you have money from any of these 16 countries, you can convert it to local currency by visiting our nearest branch. Alternatively, our secure Forex ATMs accept cash exchange, or if you prefer using your cards, we've partnered with Visa, MasterCard, and UnionPay so that you can withdraw cash from our local ATMs or make cashless transactions at thousands of local POS partners securely and with confidence. We are linked with more than 700 global banks through our direct SWIFT address, CBE Teta. We also work with 16 international money transfer agents, out of which Tune and World Remit enable you to make direct deposits into our savings and current accounts or our popular CBE Burr mobile wallet. Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, the bank you can always rely on.
I just want to tell you guys, Akwaaba Karibu, welcome to Ghana.
My name is Princess Hatia. I am the globe-trotting princess and author. Welcome to my city, Accra. Accra is the capital of Ghana. Now, today I'm taking you on a tour to various places in the city. We're currently at the Independence Square in Accra. Now, the Independence Square is the second largest square in the world after Tiananmen Square. Accra has about 4 million people. Accra is a major economic trading hub of Ghana. We're in Makola Market. Makola Market is the second largest market in West Africa. This is where I come to buy all my fabrics, food stuff. It's a busy, bustly place. It's a lovely place to come. So if you want to get any souvenirs, Makola Market is the place to come. Now, come on with me.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced $150 million direct assistance to Africa's Sahel region as he visited Niger, seeking to strengthen ties with the country. Secretary of State Blinken visit comes as both Mali and Burkina Faso remain increasingly volatile, each having gone through 2 military coups as peace since 2020. Houtam Mashagri has the following report compiled by the VOA.
Terrorist organizations like Boko Haram and Islamic State and branches of Al-Qaeda continue to pose a threat to Nigerian governments across sub-Saharan Africa. This is aftermath of the attack last week in neighboring Nigeria, where militants in Borno State killed at least 37 fishermen. Amid regional security concerns, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken chose to visit Niger. In a joint news conference with his Niger counterpart Niamey Lincoln announced nearly $150 million in humanitarian assistance to help meet the tremendous need in Western and Central Africa and the Sahel created by regional instability. Blinken had this to say on the scourge of extremist violence.
We are also supporting investments in the long-term security of Niger, investments that you heard the minister refer to, help make Niger's law enforcement more effective in combating terrorism, strengthening border security, enhancing counter-narcotics capacity, stemming trafficking, helping to investigate, prosecute, and ultimately reduce terrorism, violent extremism.
During the visit, Blinken highlighted Niger's democratic government and its efforts to help its young people break free from the pull of extremist groups. While an expert told VOA he was not surprised that Blinken had decided to visit Niger after his visit to Ethiopia.
Again, Niger is a linchpin right now towards stability in the Sahel. And it has done significantly better than its neighbors. It has a more democratic government. Remember that in Mali and Burkina Faso, we've seen military coups. And so you have great governance turmoil in those countries. Niger is an island of stability in comparison.
Again, Niger is a linchpin right now towards the stability in the Sahel, and it has done significantly better than its neighboring Ethiopia. Niger is one of the world's poorest countries and desperately need more humanitarian aid to help nurses like this one and the remote northern village of Soldou Feta, who have an equipment and no drugs to treat patients. Blinken said the new fund for Central Africa will provide for shelter, food, safe drinking water, and sanitation, while also supporting vulnerable refugees and asylum seekers evacuated to Niger from neighboring countries. Blinken praised the peoples of Niger's generosity for taking in refugees.
Although the devastating Russia-Ukraine war has raged on for over a year, the attempt to find a peaceful remedy by the international community remains dismally inadequate. This is expecting some meaningful efforts at the country level by China and Turkey. Within a week of the start of the war, China launched reconciliation efforts. There have been mixed reaction to this initiative by the Chinese, as our staff reporter Johannes van Town tells us the following.
China is seemingly positioning itself as a mediator in the Russia-Ukraine war. Beijing has proposed a 12-point plan for peace in Ukraine, and Chinese foreign minister has said it's in communication with both sides. All of this has sparked speculations that China may try to get rivals to the negotiating table. The country typically does not get involved in other countries' conflicts, especially the more distant ones. Analyst at City University of Hong Kong says that trying to broker peace is a low-cost venture that can yield high returns.
If China can do anything, even the slightest, to end the war, or to a lesser extent, to bring the parties together to have a talk, to have, for example, to suspend the war for some periods, for some months, right? That would be something very be of tremendous value to Chinese reputation and to Chinese prestige. So it marks the beginning of China playing a global leadership role, which used to be solely played by the United States.
In addition, on the political settlement of the Ukraine crisis, Professor Jove Tucker at the American Graduate School in Paris talking to CGTN says that China, as a major country with global influence, is the first country in the world that allows two sides to room for mediation.
China comes in right now. I think that's very good news because it's by far the most powerful and potentially influential world power, which, although the plan is very general, although we don't see practical, concrete proposals which say what the Chinese would have liked to see the Russians do, the Ukrainians do, and others, this is the first time we have a major world player with capacity to influence, with potential leverages on, especially on the Russian side, but also on the Ukrainian side, entering the scene, and that's very good.
Regarding China's reconciliation proposal, the president of Ukraine said that he has no objection to being a mediator if China does not supply weapons to Russia.
The subject and initiator of any peace initiatives can only be the states on whose territory the war is happening. That is why we made our proposal. We are active. We have proposed a peace formula. I think that was China's view and an important signal that they are going to participate in this topic. I think this is an important signal.
But for the American Institute of Peace, the proposal is intended to give China the aura of a responsible great power, but lacks any serious commitment to follow through. It is clear that there are many people who are suspicious of China's plan to reconcile the two countries, which is a manifestation that both China and Russia are anti-Western world.
And it signals something that is now proving useful to Russia. A relationship in which nothing was forbidden.
China's actually quite supportive of Russia. They're not allies, but they do have aligned interests because the Chinese and the Russians, they see the West both as a problem. They both see the West as something they don't really like. They don't like the way the rules of the world work. They'd like to change them.
Many of the 12 points were very general and did not contain specific proposals. Without mentioning either Russia or Ukraine, it says the sovereignty of all countries should be upheld.
Over now to a quick reminder of the headlines. Scholar says US is showing a remarkable paradigm shift in its Africa relations. Well, you have been watching ETV News. Thanks for your company and have a great time.